when I'm not ready. Oh, hello everybody and welcome to another Kalicube Tuesdays. I was just saying that it always went live exactly at the moment I'm not ready, and it's happened yet again. Welcome, Georgios.
Hello, Jason, and you nailed the name. So this is going to be a great Kalicube Tuesdays episode.
I'm not sure I did, but you're very generous. Before we start, I really wanted to kind of come back to the war in Ukraine. I think kind of it's going out of a lot of our minds.
We're from Ukraine. My name is Myroslav Khmarskiy, and I'm 27 years old, and I'm a partner in one of the Ukrainian law firms, Avitar. Due to the situation, a lot of skilled and experienced workers and specialists are now either refugees in different countries or they are without their jobs. We realize now that our main objective is to make sure that the Ukrainian economy withstands the war. So we call out to all international companies all around the world to help Ukrainians by hiring them. Slava Ukraini.
So a reminder there that the war continues and that the most important thing from our perspective right now as individuals is to support the Ukrainian economy. Incredibly important that they can survive and keep that economy going. I believe the economy has dropped something like 50%, is projected to drop something like 50% this year. That's a phenomenal hit to take. The more we can do to help, the better. So we can now move on with the show. You asked me earlier on, George, did I look up your name? And the answer is yes, I did. This is the start of the show. Every week is my obsession with brand SERPs. And what I saw was if I searched for George, Georgios, it actually asked me if I mean George. And so we've got that set of results, which has some videos recently that you've been on. And then if I actually do click on that link, Georgios, we get another set of results, which is totally different, where we appear because that's the name we used. What's kind of interesting here is that you use both names and Google has two very distinct sets of results. And my bet here would be that Google would be looking at that as potentially two different entities, and the George is more popular. And then if we look at the next slide, we have a knowledge panel for you. So for this episode, we got you a little event knowledge panel, 8th of June 2022, which is actually wrong. It should be the 7th of June. So somebody somewhere must have made a mistake, but we did get the knowledge panel. So you now have a knowledge panel associated with your name, but unfortunately it's not George, it's Georgios.
Okay, disclaimer here, and mainly I want to address this to Google. George Chasiotis and Georgios Chasiotis is the same person, one entity. Please don't split these two people into these two Georges into two entities. Just one.
Double George. Now, what we can do is we could do the transcript and the subtitles, and then Google will read it, and it will understand and remember, and you're going to be absolutely fine, I'm sure.
I can trust you with that. To be honest, it was a change that had to be made, and maybe a bit earlier, because we are working primarily with US companies, and our US clients and prospects had a really hard time pronouncing my name. And, I thought I should do it I should just change it to George, which is easier. But I didn't know that this will cause such a confusion to Google's knowledge graph. I'm really sorry about that to Google. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, at some point you'll need to go around, do the spring cleaning and change the Georgios to George.
Yeah.
And I can't say it either. I'm sure I'm not saying it right. But that's not the topic for today. The topic for today is, interestingly, topical authority. So the topic for today is topical authority, how to build it and maintain it. I'm incredibly interested because this is something I've been kind of looking at. I talked to Kore Gubur about this kind of concept as well. And so I'm looking to learn a lot from you today. And what I'd like to start with is, can you define for me what you mean by topical authority?
Sure. Let me just say that we had Koray in our podcast as well, the CSO, and it went really great. Such an amazing guy, and such, a humble guy, considering that he's one of the most sought after SEO professionals right now. Such a great guy, and many great learnings from him. So definition of topical authority, I would say that building topical authority is a process, in very simplistic terms, in plain English, is the process of helping Google and other search engines, but since Google is the most prominent search engine, we are going to talk about Google, associate a website with certain topics that are closely related to the website's identity and overall business goals and objectives. So in a nutshell, I would say that this is what topical authority is. This is a very simple definition of it.
Right. So, I mean, kind of somewhere along the line, it's saying, stick on topic when you're a business. And kind of traditionally people have said, oh, there's a really interesting keyword that has lots of volume. I'm going to go for that. And that's going to damage your topical authority if it isn't within your close-knit topical niche.
Not necessarily, but the problem is that, and we are serving primarily the SaaS industry, B2B SaaS companies, and we see this in many cases, that a very important, let's say, set of keywords is for SaaS companies is keywords that have the software modifier inside them. Okay, for example, email outreach software. So naturally, companies, and because these are keywords that have some commercial value in many cases inside them, naturally companies would want to launch a page that targets this exact keyword and call it a day, and have the expectation that, okay, just by launching the page and maybe building a couple of links to that page, this is enough in order for me to get visibility for the term, rank for the term, get visitors, and turn these visitors, hopefully some of those visitors, into free trials or whatever, demo requests or whatever your offering is. But the truth is that this is rarely the case, and the reason is, guess what? You are interested in email outreach software, but this is just one keyword in the broader topic of, in our case, email outreach. And so in the eyes of Google, you are not associated with email outreach software, let alone email outreach, let alone to be associated with email outreach software and thus get visibility for it, and so on and so forth. So you really have to take a step back and try to understand, how can my website, my business, be associated with this topic so that I can have chances of getting visibility for the terms that have commercial value, which obviously, for obvious reasons, are the most important to us. But I would say that in most cases, they are just the tip of the iceberg, because it's what's below the surface that I would say helps Google make the association and say that, okay, this guy is talking a lot about this topic, and it seems that they cover this topic very thoroughly. Then chances are that they know what they are talking about, and I may as well consider giving them visibility for that term that may be of interest to you.
Right. And so kind of the idea, you're saying start with something very niche and cover it incredibly well?
I would say that in many cases this would apply, but let's make it a bit more specific and more practical for people who are listening. Let's say that you are, as a matter of fact, you are an email outreach software, okay? Right. And you help your customers with email outreach for link building purposes, content marketing purposes, digital PR, and so on. Now, in this case, we could say that we have a main topic, which is email outreach. But we also, since this is connected to, I would say, your identity as a business and your product's capabilities, we also have topics such as link building, content marketing, and digital PR that I just mentioned. But we shouldn't forget in this equation, in this example that I'm using, that you also need to consider a topic, a broad topic like SEO, which, guess what, link building, if not included, has a very big overlap information-wise when it comes to with SEO. So you have to start, obviously, but by what's more important commercially and transactionally, which is in our case email outreach, link building, and so on and so forth. But I would say that since all these things are connected and there is some sort of overlap information-wise and topically-wise, you need to start covering keywords and going after keywords for each of these topics. But since they are interconnected, at the end of the day, at some point you need to develop topical authority for all these areas in order to be able to get visibility for possibly the main one, that in your case may be email outreach.
Right, yeah. So you're building these small topical clusters, linking them together where it's logical and where they do actually overlap, and then hoping to push upwards towards the head terms.
Hoping, but yeah, I would say that in a very simplistic way, this is how you can do it. First of all, you need to think about what we call at minutia, and obviously, let me just say here that SEO is a very opinionated field. Everyone has their own definitions and opinion about things, but this is what we call topic breadth, meaning that meaning the coverage of topics that are semantically associated with your main topic. In our example, the main topic is email outreach, and the semantically associated topics are link building, con marketing, digital PR, and so on and so forth. Okay, but this is just one part of the process. Topic breadth is just one dimension when it comes to topical authority. We also have things like topic depth, which is the coverage of subtopics that belong to your main topic, and the other topics that are semantically relevant, meaning how deep you go for each of these categories. For example, for email outreach, for link building, and so on and so forth. So this is the second dimension, and we have other ones that are very important as well when it comes to developing and building and maintaining topical authority.
Yeah, just but the breadth and depth. What you immediately then says, if I've got any kind of main topic that has multiple subtopics, I'm immediately in a situation where I need to create vast amounts of content very quickly to cover it both broadly and depthly, as it were, which must scare people and companies horribly.
The truth is that the metaphor we are using is, think of it like horizontally. I would say that topic breadth is like horizontal topical authority, and topic depth is vertical topical authority. Right. So the truth is that if you want to have chances of like dominating a specific topic, it's not about going after keywords here. It's about dominating a specific topic and making sure that you are associated in the eyes of Google with this specific topic. Obviously, you need to start by this, by going after like keywords and creating pages for this specific topic. But the truth is that if you want to build a more defensible strategy, and this may not be of use to a very early stage company, but to a company that's already, let's say, dominating its category and want a defensible strategy to make sure that, if we're talking about SaaS companies, that review sites or affiliate sites are not going to steal its traffic over time, then you need to expand that, and you need to do that horizontally. And this is where, you need to, in some cases, you need to go a bit off topic, just because in the eyes of Google, these two topics are associated with each other.
Would it be fair to say that the more competition there is in one of these mini topical cluster niches, the deeper you need to go in order to be able to leverage the topical authority you're talking about?
The truth is that the more competition there is, I would say that the harder Google's job is to find the best results to serve. So in that sense, yeah, what you're saying makes sense. But we have a very interesting case study that we are going to publish actually even next week to our website. Even in some categories and some topical areas where you think that this is really difficult to touch and compete on. I will give you an example. We have a SaaS company as a client, referral marketing software, and we launched one of their use cases, or at least this is the assumption at this point, is companies are using us for their product launches, to have a waiting list and so on and so forth. So why don't we start developing organic visibility for product launch? the website had no visibility whatsoever on product launch and related, let's say, subtopics that are included in the main topic of product launch. So we did exactly that. We built a topic cluster, no visibility whatsoever, no active promotion, no link building, nothing. So we built a topic cluster, and there is a main page which lives in the address, example.com/product launch, and then we put all the subtopics, let's say, that we could find and that we could cover in individual subfolders. And guess what? No active promotion, nothing. The page has the topic cluster now has visibility for product launch. It's around 4th page, something like that. But I trust that over time it will get to the first page, and it already has first positions for several of the individual pages that we have created, cluster pages, as part of this topic cluster. You could say that a lot of competition, and it seemed difficult in the beginning, but we did it in a way that, like, if I were Google and I would I was scrolling this new part of the website, I would be, it makes sense for me if I'm going to serve one of these pages as a result for these keywords, to serve all the other ones or many of the other ones, because it seems that they have done the work really easy for me, both from a consumption perspective and like how easy it is for the crawler, in other words, to consume all this content and hopefully rank it for relevant keywords.
If I were Google, George. So the crawlability is incredibly important. Does that mean that you really need to keep things in silos, that the clusters have to be folded clusters? Or do you think Google can make sense of it if it's a bit mixed up?
That's a very good question. And honestly, I would say that, as I see it at least, there's no right or wrong. In the case that I described, it worked tremendously well. But I don't find a reason why the opposite, like having the pages under your blog or something, or as close to the root domain as possible. I don't find this to be wrong, because and we had great results with it, to be honest. So I would say that it's case specific. In this case, we wanted to experiment with this URL structure, and it worked tremendously well. So, for example, we had a page on that was targeting the keyword product launch metrics. So the URL in this case was example.com/product launch /metrics. That's it. And guess what? Right now we are ranking #1 for product launch metrics. But it's case specific. Yeah, it doesn't mean that the other one, the opposite way, or having it just as a blog post or something, wouldn't work.
I've just been reminded that I didn't sing the song. So right in the middle, a quick hello and we're good to go. Welcome to the show, Georgios Chasiotis. Almost got it.
That was great. That was great.
I also forgot the sponsors, which is terrible of me. So we'll carry on the conversation right after the sponsors. Join me every week on Kalicube Tuesdays. I interview some of the smartest people in digital marketing and marketing. And this show is produced in partnership with WordLift, an absolutely amazing AI-powered SEO tool that does the heavy lifting for you. And today, I'm announcing the Kalicube Academy online courses all about, guess what? Brand SERPs. We teach you everything you need to know about optimizing your brand SERP in 3 easy courses. So my professionalism has just completely gone out of the window, but we're back with Topical Authority and George. One of the things I was wondering is that idea of association. You were talking about Google associates my brand with this topic. And we were talking earlier on about Google as a child. So I now have this image of Google the child going, oh, right, they're talking about, in your case, it's SaaS SEO. Immediately thinking of Minutai, is it cool?
It's Minutia. Hopefully, it associates us with this topic. Yeah, that's the general idea. Like, if you think about it, in most cases, let's take some websites as an example, and some topics for these websites respectively. Let's take Investopedia, for example. We all know that Investopedia is a great website when it comes to the topic of online trading. Okay.
Right.
If you take a look at the number of semantically associated pages for the topic of online trading for the website Investopedia, you will see that it's in the thousands. Let's take the website HubSpot for con marketing. You will see, if you do the same, you will see that once again the number of semantically associated pages in the thousands. Healthline for mental health, the same. Nerd Wallet for credit card, the same. Ahrefs for SEO, the same. So that's not to say that you cannot achieve, like, you cannot build, let me put it that way, you cannot build topical authority with few pages, but like most of the examples that we have, and the examples of the websites that really dominate certain topics, they don't have like 10 or 20 pages. They have hundreds, in some cases thousands, of semantically associated pages in the eyes of Google. And I would say that, and this brings me back to what you mentioned earlier about competition. The more competitive a topic is, like online trading, credit cards, SEO, for different reasons, but the more competitive it is, obviously the deeper you have to go with your efforts.
Right. I've got a couple of questions now. The next one is internal linking and the anchor text on links. How important is that?
I would say that internal linking is important, but to be completely honest, I think, and once again, this is just my opinion, I believe that internal linking is important, and like the right use of anchor text is important, but I would say that it's more important when we are talking about bigger websites. If you have a website with like 50 pages, okay, like I'm not convinced that it will make such a big difference linking back to a very specific page that is important to you, that will have such a big impact. But if we're talking about a website with thousands of pages, and you add like one of the pages in the top level menu or the footer, that could like have an impact.
Brilliant. Okay. And you talk about internal and external topical authority. I mean, we've been talking about internal topical authority really so far, about writing the right articles or writing the right content focused around these topic clusters. What do you mean by external, and how would you map that into your different mini clusters that you've got?
I think that when it comes to external topical authority, I'm not probably the best to answer this question. I guess that someone like you could answer that. But for me, and I will use our website as an example. We have visibility for SaaS SEO agency, as we were discussing previously, and we don't even mention SaaS SEO agency in our website. Like, how did that happen? Okay, it's not like we did something that we have control over on our own website. It's something outside of that like caused that helped Google make that association. For me, this is external topical authority. This is all the factors that are outside of your website, and in most cases you have less control over, that help Google understand that you are topically associated, or that you can be topically associated with a specific topic that you're interested in. But once again, I wouldn't say that I'm the best to talk about external topical authority.
Right.
Yeah.
But to come back in that case to kind of the internal and content writing, what are the kind of real tips and tricks to writing the content so that you stay focused? Because we do all, often not all, I don't know about everybody, but I certainly have a tendency to kind of go off on a bit of a tangent sometimes when I'm writing, and using words perhaps that don't fit, or using colloquialisms and so on and so forth. Is it incredibly important to stick to simplistic language and stick to very much the topic and not diverse?
I would say that both from when it comes to the language that you use, both from like a search engine user then visitor then hopefully customer or anything that's important to you standpoint, and from the search engine crawler standpoint, it makes sense that the language is as simple as possible, unless if we are talking about, I don't know, academia or content that has a different focus. But in most cases, that isn't the case, especially online. If we're talking about something like marketing, this is not the case, definitely. So language has to be as simple as possible, both for a user to understand and for a crawler to process, because the same way the user use their brain to make sense of words, the same way Google is using its own brain to make sense of words, and it becomes increasingly and exponentially good at it. So I would say that the words that you use and the language that you use has to be as simple as possible. So in a nutshell, yeah.
I mean, it just occurred to me, one thing is that Fabrice Canel from Bing talks about Bingbot is getting better exponentially, and I think we forget often that these machines are learning as they're crawling, as they're analyzing, as we're working, and we're teaching them somewhere along the line, and they're getting better and better exponentially. One question I had as well is about the headings within an article. How important is it to use headings that actually make sense on their own, as opposed to using headings like introduction, the next steps, and conclusion?
That's a good question. Once again, this is my opinion, and I will speak, of experience here. We are doing a project now with a public SaaS company from the US, and we are working on a glossary for them. A glossary, we call them term pages. Each page represents a term. A glossary answers the what is, question. Now, we took a look at many what is pages online and from SaaS companies specifically, and we have noticed like some patterns, that there are some things that are common, let's say, in those pages. For example, first of all, what is, the definition, a very simple definition for anyone to understand, because you are addressing beginners, like you're talking to beginners. You shouldn't forget that. But we have seen things like, why is it important? How that term compares to another one, this term vs another one, the history of the term, examples of the term, how to, if that applies, how to do that specific job that the term represents, or whatever. And so these are all things that people have in mind, and I would say including them makes sense in the page, makes sense, because at the end of the day, you should aim and strive for satisfying the user and what they had, the search engine user, and what they had in mind when they landed on your page. And also something that we, sorry for interrupting you, but something that we have also seen, like as something very important, is how the information hierarchy, like where do you place each section? Because if you think about it, it doesn't make sense to talk about how to do it, and then at the bottom talk about why is it important. So the information needs to make sense. Like, how do you define, or how do you figure out what makes sense? I would say that you have to take a step back and try to understand how would you like to be educated on a specific topic.
Right. Yeah, no, that's really kind of interesting, going from top to bottom in terms of kind of learning experience. And it's what Google's trying to do with people also ask, is to take you on a journey. And you're saying as they land on your page for that initial question, you can take them on a short journey of discovery and education, and potentially at the bottom do your small upsell. The last question is, you've talked about breadth and depth, and what about velocity? I think that scares a lot of people, because you think, I have to publish every day.
I wouldn't say every day, but to be honest with you, and we have many examples here about that, I would say that the frequency at which you publish new content, if we are talking about a new website, and not an established one, because in established websites, you also need to care about updating the content and monitoring performance so that you can maintain what you have already built. But the truth is that publishing velocity matters. And I have an example here of a guest that we had at the SaaS SEO show, who is Dimitris Drakatos. He's leading the SEO efforts at peanutapp.io, and they have around 2 million monthly visits, according to Ahrefs at least, per month. They have in their XML sitemap, at least on their blog, something around 1,460 blog posts, and they started their efforts about a year ago. If you do the math, this is like approximately 122 blog posts per month. This is massive, and I'm not saying that this is what you need to do in order to get 2 million monthly visits per month, but like all the examples that I have are not of companies that were publishing 2 blog posts per month. Okay, I feel that publishing velocity is extremely important, and if you are interested in accelerating things and building topical authority and getting results faster, you really have to move fast. This isn't to say that you have to make compromises on quality and you just have to roll out content that's really poor quality. But if you can find and develop a scalable way of producing content, high quality content, and maintaining a high publishing velocity, you have higher chances of getting the results that you crave for.
Absolutely brilliant. That's a wonderful conclusion. In the sense we've gone through breadth, depth, and now velocity, and this reminds me of Despicable Me with Vector. Anyway, it's a long story. I love cartoons. Now we're going to announce. Thank you so much, George. I'm sorry. Thank you, everyone, for watching. That was really interesting. I got a lot out of it, and I'm going to be using those ideas with Kalicube. So watch out to you guys at the Kalicube team. And we're going to introduce next week, which is going to be Heba Ashour from Bing. She's the program manager for the image and video algorithms at Bing, and she's going to talk all about how international image video search works. It's going to be phenomenally interesting. She's super smart and she shares a lot of detail. So could you pass the baton, please, George?
Okay, let me get the baton and pass it on. Sorry about that. Pass it on to Heba, and I'm sure that it will be an amazing episode.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, George. You get the outro song. A quick goodbye to end the show. Thank you, George. It was
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Fun. Kalicube. It's all about